Becca, tell us about in the last 12 months, what kind of developments you've seen that influence company formation and investments in the life sciences sector.
Yeah, I think there are two answers to this question. One is that scientists keep finding cool, amazing things that should be translated into human health. And so there continues to be, I think, a drive towards, building new companies, tackling hard problems. I think the themes that I cannot make it a week without hearing company pitches on each of them are obesity, weight management, and metabolism. I don't think I have gone a week without hearing about B cell depletion, the autoimmune space, and inflammation. And I don't think I've gone a day without hearing an AI pitch. And I think that what this means, if you're someone who's a company creator who happens to be a genuine expert in any of those three spaces, is that there's a lot of non-experts talking to people like me about AI right now. And I need to learn from genuine experts in AI and metabolism and autoimmunity about what is and is not real here and what is and is not special and important here. And I think that the challenge of when there are these big mega trends, when there are just constantly multiplying companies going after these spaces, I think the challenge becomes, how do you prove why your approach is special? How do you prove why your approach is real when there's a lot of, frankly, noise and hype in the space? And I think that, it's important to remember that I learn these spaces from learning from companies and from learning from the experts that companies put forth. And so being able to really articulate, differentiation and the foundations of your work and how it fits into the history of the field is like even more important if you find yourself caught up in one of those big mega trends.
That's so well said. We've heard that across all verticals in general, purse strings have been tightened and it's harder to raise, maybe a little easier for late stage companies. Is that true in life sciences?
Yeah, so I'm a biologist, and so I cannot answer that question without referencing survival of the fittest and evolution itself. And I would say that I don't think that it's a bad thing that investors are being thoughtful about where do they apply their capital. The way that I would frame this is that the public markets have been in a down direction for a couple of years. It's been challenging. There's been a lot of noise. I think the pace of IPOs has been slower in the last couple of years than it was in the years preceding. And the result of this is that there's a lot of outstanding companies who are undervalued, both in the public markets, and there's a lot of outstanding late stage private companies who have not yet been able to make it into the public markets. And so for earlier stage companies, I
No,
can
it's just a
totally
lunch
see how this
break, but
creates a
there's like the
pressure.
talk happening.
Can I just say we've got some background noise if everyone can mute? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I think it just creates a pressure, and it does mean that, there's increased competition for those limited resources of funding and investor attention. But great companies are still getting funded and have been funded throughout this challenging period. We've even seen successful IPOs, even in these sort of challenging IPO markets, of companies who have near-term value inflection points, who are doing real and important science, who have, backers who are standing by them. And so undeniably, right, things are not easy. I don't think they ever were easy. And I think it's good that there's this pressure to allow the best ideas to, compete for funding.
Which areas of life sciences, you kind of touched on it, are hottest and which aren't? Would you stick with those three you mentioned earlier? Are there
Yeah.
areas that aren't hot?
Yeah, I cannot overstate how many new obesity and metabolic health companies I have seen in the last month. I think that this has been a fascinating thing to watch happen where, I think a little bit before my time, but I hear the stories of how untouchable obesity and metabolic disease was as an investment area for VCs and for biotechs before, some of the big players built this space and are continuing to realize the size and the scope of it. And also, I think to recognize the relationship between body weight, obesity, metabolism, cardiac health, other organ health, longevity, inflammation, right? I think that this is a field that is still being built and is still figuring out what the big trends in the next, not merely 5 years, but 15 years and 20 years are going to look like. And I think it's really interesting to watch the evolution from, oh, we just need to have the next entrant that looks like Ozempic, that looks like, Wegovy and all of these other things, to, well, what would a better version of this be? What are the challenges that are still left with some of those drugs, like poor tolerability, the potential impacts on muscle health? So I think it is genuinely a very interesting space that is growing and evolving rapidly.
What advice do you have for universities, in terms of developing their technologies and making them more appealing to investment firms?
Yeah, get feedback early. I think it's by design that academic PIs, investors and folks based at universities all think about this profoundly differently and have very different, things and criteria that they're looking for in what makes a project special or important or fundable. And I think that, you can always tell with a company that when they've been meandering for a few years and they haven't gotten enough feedback or they haven't had enough diversity of inputs into how they're thinking about which problems they should tackle and how they should go about it. And so I think getting feedback early and, hearing a diversity of opinions is extremely valuable.
So, especially in the Midwest, I mean, there isn't more than a handful of firms that really focus on life sciences. So it's, I suspect, hard to get that feedback because there are so few life sciences investors in your backyard. What other kinds of people would you get that kind of feedback from?
Yeah, I think that pharmaceutical companies and their R&D heads and the folks who work in those organizations are extremely knowledgeable and have yet another completely different perspective on this industry and on what makes for an exciting project. I also will point out that we have Zoom and VCs can get on a plane even if we don't all live in the Midwest. And so, I also would hope that there is an opportunity to speak to different universities who have different strengths and different perspectives on, you know, where they're seeing innovation and where they're seeing new projects come out of.
What kind of advice do you have for universities in particular about marketing their technologies? What do you like to see?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that it's all about translating the so what, right? I think that, I was a grad student. I'm as guilty as anyone else is of thinking that, oh, the way to talk about this project is to tell you guys all of the details, because that's what I find so exciting about the work that I'm doing every day and all of the like intense technical parts of this. And in reality, what I think can help something shine through just the number of opportunities that we all see and the number of, pitch decks and emails that everyone gets is to really have the so what. The reason this is exciting is X. The way this is different from every past approach is Y. The reason this is going to work, even though every other attempt at solving this problem has failed, is Z. Having that front and center, I think, is really speaking to what investors are looking for.
Thank you so much. I know that was fast, but it's time to go into our networking, and whoever hasn't met with Rebecca gets the glorious opportunity to do it this afternoon. Tammy, do you want to explain the breakout rooms? Because I just looked at them and I'm not seeing where everyone should go.
Yes. So I just reopened the breakout rooms and there will be two new names. One is called A Investor Only Networking and one is called University Only Networking. So go to the one that fits your profile and meet others that are like you.
Thank you so much, Tammy. We're going to go for, I think it's a half an hour, right, to the breakout rooms. And Tammy
It's
will
25 minutes.
25 minutes, and Tammy will send a message when it's time to get back to the meetings, and then we'll have an afternoon of meetings with 1 10-minute break. Thank you
And
so much.
yes, and I will close those rooms so that I can rename the ones that I named the
So we'll all
networking.
come back here and
We'll
then
all come back and then we'll all go back again. Okay?
Thank you. Tammy, do we need to turn off the recording?
Yes. Got it.